Hey guys, now this one we're going to kind of focus more on the leather, and there's probably going to be two main things we're doing with this video. I want to get some of those sort of leather cellular patterns, like the height detail seems a lot more pronounced in the reference, and see how flat that book looks? That is kind of one of the big ones I want to get fixed, and then I really want to introduce some more roughness variation, like those little dry patches. Again, this is just way too clean because we're just relying on that preset. Let's try doing the height first, and then we'll fix the roughness. There's a couple of things we can look into for this. What I'm hoping for is we can find a couple procedurals that'll work. So let's see, if we type in leather, what do we got? That's interesting, that might work. That could be also definitely a workable texture. Let's see. Another thing we could type in is something called cells. Cell patterns is another pretty common procedural in Painter and Designer, and it's not really leather, but you can tell visually it kind of has almost that same sort of texture we're looking for. So I might try the leather one first, and if that doesn't work out too well, we'll try that guy. We'll see what we can do. Now above the other leather layers, so in that leather group, we're going to make a new fill layer. Let's call this leather height. And I'm only going to enable height for this one. So it's not color like we were doing before, just height. And we're going to add a black mask. Let's go over here. Let's add a fill, because we're just talking about a procedural effect that's going to kind of cover everything. So add a fill. And out of those two, I don't really know which one's going to be better. I might start with this one first. I'm hoping those streaks aren't too pronounced. Let's see. What does this look like? Well, this actually might work. It's kind of crackly looking. Let me just check this other guy since I got this thing up. What is this guy doing? That one's better. Yeah, I don't know what you guys think, but I think between these two, this one looks a little more dry and brittle. This feels slightly closer to the reference. I kind of like that. I'm not sure how these are going to look. I don't know if I can control that on this one. Let's see. Balance, contrast, brush. Oh, the random seed works on this guy. That's interesting. Okay, so this has a couple different textures blending together. You can actually kind of see where they mix. Interesting. Yeah, we'll just see what happens here. So I have a couple different variations we can click through. All right, now let's think about what we're trying to do here. I don't think it really matters if we think we're going up or down. Probably would make more sense if I push the cracks inward. So what I'm going to do here is invert this so the cracks are the white part, because that's what I'm trying to affect. Like white is where you're affecting something. So let's try inverting it. Now I'm going to go back here and let's just move the height down and see what this does. It's actually not too bad. I kind of like that. Let me turn that on and off so you can see it. That's kind of cool. Oh, look at this right here though. Look at that little problem. So now that I have this in here, we've found an issue. In fact, if you look at it, this might have been happening before. We didn't fix a problem with the height. And there's a chance that this leather height is pushing through to the fabric. So we kind of ran into this earlier. Let's check what happens. So height, yep. Fabric and leather are just adding together. Let's set the fabric's height to normal so it covers the leather. See how we lost that? Let me show you the height before. So here's what the height looks like with normal, and this is what it looked like when it was on, I think it was on linear dodge. Oh, you can't really see it anyway because it's too dark. That's fine. But you guys can kind of see visually, like that's fixing my issue. So I had another height problem. Now I think one thing we could do as well is maybe introduce a roughness variation on the cracks. So maybe I'll kind of go back here and we'll turn on roughness. I don't know if this one's really going to stand out much, but we'll say in the cracks, maybe dirt's built up and it's going to be rougher. So I'm just going to boost this up a little bit. Actually, it looks kind of cool on the surface. See what's happening right there when I turn roughness on and off? It's adding a couple dry little cracks that run through the geometry. It's subtle, but I think I'm going to leave that. Okay, let's leave that the way it is. You can kind of see it right there. Okay, next up, let's try to maybe get some of the roughness variation overall. So what we're going to do is make another fill layer, because again, I'm just thinking about what the effect is I need. This is going to be leather roughness. And we are going to only do roughness on this one. Black mask. You can kind of see him just repeating the same thing over and over again. Fill. Okay, we just want some really broad variation. I kind of want to get stuff like this, where it's not really much of a defined texture. It's just you can tell things have these like little drier and sharper sections. I just need anything to break that up. That's way too perfect. So let's go back here and maybe go into grunge map. Might be something in here we can use. That one's kind of interesting. It's rust, but I don't think that's going to matter. Again, as long as it looks good, that's all that really matters. Okay, we'll drag that in there, and that should show up. This is what it looks like. Great. Let's see what we can do with this guy. So I'm going to look at the roughness, make sure it is working. Okay, yep, that's definitely affecting it. So let's hop back here, and I'm just going to move. Yeah, you can kind of see what it's doing to the highlight. I think what I want to do is just push the contrast just a little more in that procedural. So let me try just exaggerating the variation between the dry and the clear sections. There we go. Look at that. It's not bad. Let's move the light. See how cool that looks? And we could, of course, like add in other roughness maps. Like we've only done one fill layer. Nothing's stopping us from bringing some more detail in there. And maybe one more thing we could do, since this went by pretty quick. Let's just try to get some very, very slightly brighter areas of the weather. Because you can kind of see the color itself does change a little bit. So, same thing. Let's just go to a fill layer. We'll say this is leather color lighten. And so we're only doing color on this one. And kind of faint. So let's see if we can find a pretty soft texture. Maybe we'll do, oh, I don't know, we'll do B&W spots possibly. I haven't used this one very much. So black mask, add a fill, and we're just going to see what we can get with this guy. Okay, what's this one look like? I think for this guy, what I'm going to try doing is clipping out more of the white, because I really don't want to be changing it that much. Yeah, something kind of like that. And this one actually has extra sliders down here for scale and disorder and roughness. This one's kind of interesting. I've used B&W spots quite a few times, but the roughness is cool because if you kind of move it up and down, you can get some kind of interesting variations of this texture where it's a lot softer or more spotty. So this has been one of my go-to textures for a while. So maybe bring that back to a softer one. And actually it might be kind of cool if we mixed another one with it. So let's do another fill. Let's grab B&W spots for this one. This guy, I'm going to make it more spotty. And we're going to try to mix the two together. Okay, let's bring that back a little bit. Might be kind of cool to get some lighter spots like that in there. Okay, that's covering that one. Let's try doing a max. See how we kind of have those two mixing now? Let's hop back here. Okay, it's the wrong color. Not a big deal. So I'm going to hop to my base color, because I'm going to try to get a selection of this. So we're going to come down here, click on that, click on the eyedropper. Let's just pick that same tone as a starting point. You've noticed I've been doing that a lot. And then I'm going to make this a little more yellow and then lighter. And kind of look at my reference again. I think I need to push that saturation more. Let's pull that back and just lighten that up just a bit. There we go, something like that. It's not too bad. And I could play around with the procedurals now that I have like a decent color setup. But now we're just kind of introducing this really subtle little like faded color effect across the surface. So if I zoom in here, you can kind of see how that's affecting it. And of course, if I want to I can go in there and say, you know what, this also affects the roughness. And then, once again, we could play around with how dry or wet those faded areas look. So maybe those are really rough. We'll just crank that guy way up. Kind of cool, right? Okay. So that's going to be it for the kind of leather variation. We could push this a lot farther, but I kind of want to get into a couple other videos and show you how to break up edge damage on the leather. And then we'll probably move into, let's see, what do we even have left after that? That might be almost it. All right, yeah, let's kind of move into the edge damage, and we'll show you guys how generators work.